So, I just finished Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Alan Dean Foster. It was the Star Wars sequel that he had been contracted to write in case the movie Star Wars, now A New Hope, if it didn't do well and they needed a low-budget sequel. It's somewhat famous amongst the older Star Wars fans, I think, and yes, I am on a bit of a Star Wars kick lately, and no, I'm not sorry. But in the here and now, I was, for the most part, kind of uninterested in what Alan Dean Foster has created here. And that's probably because it was a low-budget sequel to Star Wars, made with the assumption that they'd have even less money than they did the first time around. So there's only one jungle planet on which Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia crash down on, and there's no Han Solo because they didn't know if they'd be getting Harrison Ford back, which means there's no Chewbacca, no Millennium Falcon, and Darth Vader's presence in the book is as short as it is kind of lackluster. The story itself is surprisingly straightforward, following Luke and Leia as I said, they crashed on a jungle planet on their way to an important rebel meeting. They go looking for help and discover the planet is occupied by Imperials, and they make the rather smart decision of walking into town. This is like a secret Imperial mining colony, and they are important members of the Rebel Alliance. As far as the book tells us at the time, we have no real reason not to think the people here were handpicked by the Empire, and we have no real reason to think that this is just going to be a normal mining town. I mean, as I said, it's a secret mining colony. Illegal, apparently, and the Empire's doing it anyway, and once Luke and Leia enter the town, it becomes apparent that there are, like, shops and bars and such, and there's just sort of people wandering around, but they had no guarantee it would be like that. Usually secret mining colonies are a little bit more under the absolute control of the people who are in charge of them. It's just one of those things that bothers me a little bit, and I get why it happens, so that the plot can happen, but still. Just because it's a story with space wizards and laser guns doesn't mean that people aren't allowed to act smart and with logic. But Luke and Leia, they are sneaking around in disguise. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention they have the incredibly recognizable droids with them, who you'd think the Empire would be on the lookout for, especially since the Empire itself doesn't use colorful models for their droids, not unlike, right, as opposed to the golden C-3PO and the blue and white R2, they sort of stand out. But again, I digress. They eventually team up with an old woman who agrees to help them get off the planet, but only if they help her find the Kyber crystal, which is this magical artifact said to have power over the Force. You'll notice where our buddy George later got the name for the crystal that powers a lightsaber, from this book. But shenanigans ensue as the rebels, they set out for the temple, only to be captured briefly by the Imperials. They manage to escape with the help of some Yuzum, who are they're like shorter Wookiees, I'm guessing, so that you don't have to pay a really tall guy. But they head out into the jungle, only to be chased by like this giant dune worm, and then they fall down a massive chasm, only to be captured again by these underground cave dwellers. Luke does have a kind of cool trial by combat with the champion of these cave people. I forget what they're called. And then the Empire tracks them down again. It's really one distraction from the main plot to another, without adding much depth, I think, to the story itself. Vader eventually he's alerted to the presence of the two rebels, and he arrives to deal with them. His expedition into the underground looking for them is staggeringly unsuccessful, and I was actually quite offended by Foster's lack of respect for Darth Vader as a whole. He seems really petty in this, and not nearly as competent as he is portrayed in later movies and adaptations. He's more like Ramsay Snow with magic powers. Anyway, Vader then heads to the temple with the magic crystal, which Luke and Leia, they actually get there first, and there's a big statue of Cthulhu there for some reason, and it has the crystal lodged in its chest. And they eventually have a fight with some sort of guardian monster, in which Luke is pinned by falling rubble. And when Vader finally shows up, Leia actually has to fight him, and with Luke's lightsaber. Cool, right? She does well for herself, but Vader obviously defeats her, and he's going to kill her when Luke finally manages to escape with the help of a wounded Yuzum, and he fights Vader, and he winds up cutting Vader's arm off, which is really weird, and it came across as kind of easy, and Vader is still winning despite having one arm, and then he's going to kill them, and he falls down a hole and disappears. I wish I were making this up. There's not really a good explanation given, I don't think, or for that matter, why during the fight Vader shoots a sphere of like white magical energy, like he's a freaking battle mage. But yeah, they wind up using the Kyber crystal to heal Luke and Leia, and then they go on their merry way. Yep, that happened. I feel bad to say this. I feel bad to say that I did not like this book. It was not for me, and I'm glad they made Empire Strikes Back instead. I'm also sorry to say, personally, I for one am more interested in Star Wars The Acolyte than in this book. And I don't like Star Wars The Acolyte, really. I'm only watching it for the respectable Jedi Master Saul and for the Darth Revan wannabe character. But even that is still more interesting to me personally than this. I'm sorry to anyone whose favorite book this is. I'm merely sharing my personal thoughts and frustrations. You're allowed to like whatever you want. Just know that this was not for me. But the cover was awesome. Ralph McQuarrie, I think, he really did a great job. You've got freaking terrifying Vader coming out of the fog like a nightmare, and obviously the two rebels are screwed. And that's why I read the book, for that scene alone, which wound up letting me down. Oh well. I'm thinking about Heir to the Empire next. Until then, if you like the video, like and subscribe to hear me ramble on about other great and not so great works of fiction, I have and always will be Connor Landon Freeman. Yeah. Bye.